Faithful God, open the Scriptures to us in a fresh and exciting way. In Jesus' name we ask it. Amen. Early on Sunday morning, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been rolled away. These words from John's Gospel echo down to us across the centuries, and with them a whole new day has dawned. But Mary is soon to discover not just an empty tomb, but a few verses later, she's to meet the risen Christ. Standing weeping outside, a man asks her, "Mary, why are you weeping?" Thinking him to be the gardener, she explains she's worried that they've taken Jesus' body away. And then there's the single word that would transform her life forever, and the life of billions of people is heard for the first time. He says her name, Mary. Bursting with good news, she goes quickly to tell the others, "I have seen the Lord." Today we gather and we hear the news too, that the crucified, dead and buried Jesus is now the risen and glorified Christ. It shouldn't come as a surprise for us. We've been getting ready for 40 days. But like Mary, we can hardly take it in. It transformed Mary's life. Mary was, Luke tells us in his Gospel, healed of 7 demons by Jesus. Rosalie Schoolward had her demons as well. She was born into a violent home in rural Australia, and every day when she was growing up held uncertainty, even danger for her and her 7 siblings. Often left to fend for herself, she had a withdrawn mother and an angry, aggressive father. They would often taunt her until she threw up. Molested too by outsiders, Rosalie quickly developed a mistrust of all men. Unable to cope any longer, she ran away from home at just age 14. She went to Melbourne, and her life became darker and darker. Out of control, she appeared before the judge. Facing a long prison sentence for what she'd done, she bargained with God, a God that she didn't really believe in. "God," she said, "if you're real, get me out of this, and I will serve you." The judge stared at her a long time. "I don't know why I'm doing this," she said, "but I'm letting you off on probation." Rosalie seized the opportunity. She went to her aunt that she knew was a Christian. "I need this Jesus you've been talking about," she said. Her aunt prayed for her, and she felt something dark leave her. It was replaced instead with an overwhelming sense of peace. God's love had not only changed the world, she recounted later, it had changed me. Wanting a fresh start, she moved to Canada. She made new friends, and one of them became her husband. It was his faith and his loyalty to her that convinced her to become a Christian. Today she has 3 sons and is even reconciled with her father. She concludes, no matter what has happened in your life, there is hope in God. That is the Easter faith we celebrate today in a nutshell. There is hope. I'm not sure my sister quite gets it though. She sent me a text. She said, "Brain cells die, skin cells die, and even hair cells die," she said, "but my fat cells in my stomach must have Jesus as their Lord and Saviour, since they seem to have eternal life." That Easter hope is not one that can be easily extinguished. What I find the most convincing evidence of all of the resurrection, and there's a lot of evidence, is that each of the disciples were prepared to lay down their lives for this Easter Jesus. Unable to limit our Easter faith to just words alone, the Church uses symbols. We have a wonderful symbol here looks fantastic. I hope lots of people take photos of it. But also we have another symbol over here, the Paschal or the Easter candle. It's lit through the 50 days of Easter. The church keeps 50 days of Easter. Most people just eat their chocolates and forget about it, but it's so important to us. We have 50 days, and we light the candle at baptisms and also at funerals. I heard of one little girl who'd been baptised as a baby. Now, on the anniversary of each baptism, they'd light the candle that was given to her, lit from the Easter candle, the symbol of our resurrected hope. She understood what baptism meant by age 4, but the candle had begun to burn right down. So one day when she was shopping with Dad in the supermarket, she said, "Dad, we need another candle." So Dad did what he was told and got another candle. What came next surprised both her parents. When it was time to light the new candle, she insisted that the new one be lit from the old one. She had learned what us adults sometimes forget, that it's passing the light of Christ on that keeps it alive forever. In the 1950s in Soviet Russia, the authorities were determined to stamp out Christianity, this annoying faith that seemed to never die. So they trained up educationalists to go out to the villages, there's lots of villages in Russia, and one such arrived in a remote village. The people of the village all gathered to hear from the learned man. After all, it wasn't every day that someone came from Moscow. They listened with interest to the evils of the church. They were fascinated by the arguments against God, how it was all superstition, and to really advance society they needed to give up this childish faith. At the end of the long talk, the village priest put up his hand. "Can I say something?" he said meekly. "If you must," the academic said, "but make it short," he said grumpily. "Oh, I won't take long," he said. He stood up and he said, "Alleluia, Christ has risen," to which the villagers gave the thunderous response, "He is risen indeed, Alleluia." The academic slipped away quietly into the crowd, knowing he'd been beaten. So I invite you today on this Easter morning, maybe not here during church, maybe later when you get some time alone, to imagine yourself in the early dawn, going to the tomb just as Mary did. Use all your senses to paint a picture in your mind of what it looks like. The smells, the sensations, the new light just coming through the clouds. Only this time the risen Christ isn't going to say, "Mary," but your name. But your name. What does it feel like to be greeted by name by the risen Christ? David, Bronwyn, Edwin, Margaret, covered about 5 bases there, Margaret. Take as long as you need to process that moment and allow the risen Christ to transform your life just as it did Mary Magdalene's, Rosalie's, a Russian village, and countless people, too many to number.